गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन ब्रजरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन ब्रजरञ्जन यमुनातीर वनचारि जय Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai Jai Vishnupada, Brahmasapaya Vijakacharya, Stota Shri Srimad Shalabhaya Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, all closest to devotees, all closest to devotees, all closest to devotees, all closest to Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. Today we'll be speaking from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14, verse 32. This is in relation to the story of King Vena. I'll share my screen now. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Right. Nayam arhatya sadvritto naradeva varasanam yodhiyagyapatim vishnam vinindatya na patrapaha. Nayam arhatya sadvritto naradeva varasanam yodhiyagyapatim vishnum vinindatya na patrapaha. Anyone would like to recite the verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Nayam Naradeva Varashino Yo Vishnu Nandati Anapatrapaha.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am trying.
Sure.
Nayam ajhati asat britto naradevo varasanam jodhyagna patim vishnu vindati anapatrapaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? No? Okay, let's try again. Nayam arhatya sadvritto naradeva varasanam yodhyagyapatim vishnam vinindatya napatrapaha. Na, never. Ayam, this man. Arhati, deserves. Asatvrittaha, full of impious activities. Naradeva, of the worldly kings or worldly god. Vara asanam, the exalted throne. Yaha, he who. Adhiyagyapatim, master of all sacrifices. Vishnum, Lord Vishnu. Vinindati, insults. Anapatrapaha, shameless. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The saintly sages continued, this impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Prabhupada by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One should not at any time tolerate blasphemy and insults against Lord Vishnu or his devotees. A devotee is generally very humble and meek, and he is reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes fiery with anger when he sees the Lord Vishnu or his devotee is insulted. This is the duty of a devotee. Although a devotee maintains an attitude of meekness and gentleness, it is a great fault on his part if he remains silent when the Lord or his devotees is blasphemed. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Charu Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Tama Krishna Goswaminiti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Visheshunyavadi Paschatidishatarine Shri Chaitanya Manopristam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Guru Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sakana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagandalalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhava cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we actually hearing about the how the sages are actually were trying to pacify King Vena first to get him to stop uh, uh, his unwanted ex, which is basically King Vena was trying to stop all the yajnas and everything, and the sages were trying to pacify him, but instead King Vena started insulting, and in this case he started insulting Lord Vishnu. So in this purport here, Professor Prabhupada basically maintains that devotees normally are very meek and humble, and they don't uh, show any anger. However, when the Lord or his devotees are insulted, one must act. In this relation, there's a very nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 126. Nindam Bhagavatah Shrinvam Tat Parasya Janasya Va Tato Napaiti Yah Sopi Yatyatha Kritachitaha. One who hears blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Lord, Godhead, or his devotees should immediately take action or should leave. Otherwise, he will be put into hellish life perpetually. There are many such injunctions. Therefore, as a regulative principle, one should not be unfavorable toward the Lord, but always favorable, inclined towards him. So, Sri Prabhupada mentions that normally we follow the Trinada Pinisunachena teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is we always, very humble. We don't act, we don't show anger. However, when the Lord or devotees are defamed, one should not remain Trinada Pinisunachena. One should take steps. Anyway, any Vaishnava is never angry, but that does not mean that we tolerate insult to Lord Vishnu and Vaishnavas. So there are different types of aparadhs. I thought I should probably quickly pick on each one of them. Bhagavad aparadh, which is the offense to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nam aparadh, which we chant every day, the 10 offenses in chanting of the holy names. And then, of course, Vaishnava aparadh, offenses unto the Lord's devotees. Bhagavad aparadh is generally when someone insults or acts inappropriately towards the Lord, like Shishupal. Shishupal was saying all sorts of things to the Supreme Lord. And in this case, it says, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demonic life. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most vulnerable type of existence. So this is basically what happens when we blaspheme the Lord, offend the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who blasphemes the Lord is put into family of asuras, in fact, and in which there is every chance of forgetting the service to the Lord. So this is the effect of Bhagavad Aparadh. And what do we do? What should we do if the Lord is insulted? We must leave immediately when the Lord is offended. If he does not do so, he becomes bereft of all his pious activities and is degraded to the lower condition of life. How to overcome that? Basically, beg the Lord, Supreme Lord, for forgiveness and chanting His holy names. In Prarthana, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Haristhane aparade tare harinam, Tomasthane aparade nahi paritrane. So he says, my dear Lord, my dear Vaishnava, Acharya, that if anyone offends the Supreme Lord, the Lord forgives. The holy name can deliver the offense unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if one commits an offense unto you, there is no means of deliverance. So we also have Namaprad. Of course, we know all the 10 offenses. I won't dwell much on this, but in this relation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami says that to consider Shri Guru to be an ordinary human being is the most deadly offense, the most severe Namaprad. So, following the not obeying the orders of the spiritual master and considering the Gurudev to be an ordinary person is a great offense. And as a result, one cannot attain auspiciousness even in billions of births. Then there's a different types of Vaishnava Aparadh. In the Skanda Purana says one who kills a devotee, one who blasphemes of a devotee, one who's envious of a devotee, one who fails to offer obeisance to devotee upon seeing them, one who becomes angry with a Vaishnava, one who does not become joyful upon seeing a Vaishnava. These 6 classes of foolish men who blaspheme Vaishnavas go to the worst kind of hell, along with generations of their ancestors. This is quite significant, you know. Um, Sometimes we don't see joyful upon seeing, and that's again actually offense. Becoming angry with Vaishnava, that's offense. You know, blaspheming is and killing, kind of, and being envious is, we all know that. But a lot of times we become angry with devotees. We even fail to offer obeisances. So, you know, it's always important when we see devotees, we must offer obeisances, you know, to pranam, even that is good enough. I mean, if we can't uh, offer dandavat pranam, uh, should always never be angry. Should always be very careful, because when we become angry, the Lord becomes angry. And we should always become joyful when we see the Vaishnavas. You know? And if we don't, then we have to go to the worst kind of hell among with generations of our ancestors. And then in this Kanpuran further, it says that, um, O king, anybody who makes fun out of the devotee of the Supreme Person of Godhead, his religiosity, wealth, fame, and family members all reach ruination or are destroyed. Any person who kicks a Vaishnava, criticizes him, angers him, envies him, who is not pleased to see him or disrespects him, Mother Nature becomes very angry with him and is not happy with him. They are sent to the hellish planets. So these 6 things are meant for the degradation. So it's the same thing, but just expanded on the 6 offenses mentioned above. Therefore, one must avoid these 6 demonic activities. Further on in Nam Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions 4 other kinds of blasphemy to Vaishnavas. To find fault with the Vaishnavas is apparent low birth, to blaspheme him with his previous faults, to blaspheme him with his accidental fault, to blaspheme him for the faults that are almost rectified, um, to find fault with the Vaishnava for his apparent low birth, that's understandable, to blaspheme him for his previous faults. So a lot of times we may have done something previously, so if we bring that up and start finding faults and criticizing the Vaishnava, it's also a way of Vaishnava pride. So we have to be very careful on these kinds of offenses that can cause serious harm to us in our devotion. The greatest of all the Vaishnava Prads, actually, Srila Prabhupada mentions, the most grievous type of Vaishnava Prad is called Gurva Aprad, which refers to offenses at the lotus feet of a spiritual master. In the chanting of the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Gurva Aprad is considered the most grievous offense. Gurura Vikya Shruti Shastra Nindanam. This is of the 10 offenses. Among the 10 offenses committed against the chanting of the holy names, the first offense are disobedience to the spiritual master and blasphemy of the Vedic literatures. So we should also be careful. So that's very important that we should not do Guru Aparad, disobeying the spiritual master, considering to be an ordinary person. This is for some very grievous aparads that we have to be very careful of and avoid. In fact, Chaitanya Bhagavat says that even siding with a Vaishnava against another is great offense as well. Any person who sides with a Vaishnava against another Vaishnava and criticizing him is destined to be destroyed. This is Madhya Lila Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. So the effects of Vaishnava Prad, we have to understand the effects. We know highly that in general that we go to hell and all those kinds of things. But here in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it is mentioned that when one blasphemes a Vaishnava, he loses his religiosity, wealth, fame, and children. If one beats a Vaishnav, blasphemes a Vaishnav, shows disrespect to a Vaishnav, gets angry upon a Vaishnav, or does not express joy in seeing a Vaishnav, goes to hell, which we all covered earlier. And Srimad Bhagavatam also says that if a person, after hearing blasphemous propaganda against the Lord and his devotees, does not go away from that place, he becomes bereft of all the effect of the previous activities. In fact, in one of Narasimha Mehta's bhajan, wherein Lord Krishna is saying that Je mari santani ninda kare, teni kun sahit ubhangure. That Krishna says that I destroy one's entire family, the dynasty, whoever speaks ill of my devotees. So this is a very grievous offense. And any person who is rectified, has criticized a Vaishnava, such sinners, even if they worship Lord Vishnu, the source of the whole world, for hundreds of births, with such insulters of Vaishnavas, Lord Hari does not remain happy. So definitely, from what we read so far, the Lord becomes unhappy, does not tolerate offense to his devotees. A classic example is when King Ambarish Maharaj was offended by Durvasa Muni, and as a result of that, the Lord Sudarshan Chakra started chasing Durvasa Muni from planet to planet, from different places, and Durvasa Muni was trying to get shelter, protection from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all these different people, and yet all of them unable to protect him because they had offended a Vaishnava. And that's where Durvasa Muni was instructed to go and beg forgiveness from the devotee, which is Ambarish Maharaj. And only after by doing that, that the Sudarshan Chakra spared him. Other effects here: if one commits offenses out of greed to enhance one's bodily comforts, wealth, or followers, then such chanting will still give results, but they will be delayed. One will become distant from devotion. Again, in Hari Bhakti Vilas says, one who derides an exalted devotee loses the results of his pious activities. His activities, his reputation, and his sons. Vaishnavas are of great souls. Whoever blasphemes them falls down to the hell known as Maharodava, accompanied by his forefathers. So punishment in the hell called Maharodava is compulsory for a person who maintains his own body by hurting others. In this hell, rude animals known as Kravyad torment him and eat his flesh. And whoever kills or blasphemes Vaishnava, and whoever is envious of Vaishnava or angry with him, or whoever does not offer obeisance or feel joy when seeing him, certainly falls in a hellish condition. This is what we've covered. In the Hari Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami says that one who criticizes Lord Vishnu and his devotees loses all the benefits accrued for hundreds of pious births. Such a person brought in the Kumpipak hell, where he is cooked in boiling oil and is bitten by worms as long as the sun and moon exist. Therefore, one should therefore not see the face of a person who blasphemes Lord Vishnu and his devotees. Never try to associate with such a person. How to avoid a Vaishnava crowd? One should not be jealous, basically, and one should overlook the bodily defects of a person. Sometimes we make fun of someone's bodily condition, or we become jealous. Someone may be a good speaker, maybe a good orator, and we sometimes become jealous that how come he's better than me? And if we start thinking that we're becoming jealous, then that actually causes us to fall down, even if one is a Goswami. So in Bhakti Ratnakara, Srila Narhari Chakravarti Thakur writes, be careful in your dealings with devotees. Never create any ill feelings in their hearts. Creating ill feelings with devotees will create impediments on one's path of spiritual life. Please be careful. Be very careful in dealing with the Vaishnavas. Beg their forgiveness for any offense with your heart and soul. Be careful not to see a Vaishnava's faults and always sing the glories. All of the previous great devotees have said, no one can understand the behavior of Vaishnava. Hold the Vaishnava's lotus feet to your head and always dive in the nectar of Piva's devotional service. Actually, any Vaishnava on any platform that don't approve blasphemy of the Lord or his devotees. So, irrespective of who they are, we should always avoid, um, you know, whether someone's just started uh, bhakti or someone's in a later stage, an advanced stage. If we commit offense to a devotee, we will fall down. It's, and what to do if one commits a Vaishnava aparadh? Harinam Chintamani says um, we must beg for forgiveness from the Vaishnava, very earnestly holding his feet, the feet. Vaishnava is very merciful, so he will immediately embrace him and forgive him for all his offenses. This is the ideal way of begging for forgiveness when we commit offense to a devotee. Beg by holding the feet and beg for forgiveness. Jiva Goswami writes in Sridhar Bhakti Sandarbha that in order to be free from the fences, one should please its same personality through constant engaging in the process of bhakti, beginning with chanting of the holy names. So, and in the Nam Kaumudi confirms this, that offenses to great devotees can be relieved either by experiencing the calamities they bring or by attaining the favor of the devotee. So, we should always attain the favor of devotees wherever possible. And by the favor of the devotees, we get the favor of Krishna. If devotees are displeased, Krishna becomes displeased. Now, in this very nice example here, a story of how Pundarika Vidyanidhi and Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit, upon seeing the material opulence of Srila Pundarika Vidyanidhi, doubted about his highly valued position as a devotee, and came and came to the mind of Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit started thinking, how can this person be a pure devotee, because he's enjoying this material opulence. But later on, he realized that the exalted position of Vidyanidhi Mahashaya, he felt great remorse and felt it necessary to take initiation from Pundarik in order to become free from what he considers to be an offense. In Chaitanya Bhagavata, again, Lord Chaitanya says, I will personally deliver anyone who avoids criticizing others and chants Krishna. And once chants Krishna, I vow that this is truth. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vow that he will personally deliver anyone who avoids criticizing devotees. A lot of times actually we think that devotees means only the devotees that we see, but actually if you look at it, devotees means Vaishnavas start from Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, and a lot of times we've seen devotees don't realize that, and they criticize Lord Shiva. They start talking about Lord Shiva's being as a demigod and this and that, but we should remember that Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the greatest of the Vaishnavas. And in fact, later on in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord Chaitanya, even Chaitanya Charitamrita Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva is glorified as a great Vaishnava. So what to do if we commit offense? Should not tolerate blasphemy, of course, against the Vaishnava, but should immediately take these three actions. Srila Prabhupada mentions this. If someone blasphemes the Vaishnava, one should be so expert that he can defeat the opposing party by argument. That's the first thing you must do. If one is not expert enough to defeat the opposing party, then one should give up his life on the spot. If one is unable to execute the above mentioned two processes, then one must leave this place and go away. One must just leave and go away. If a devotee does not follow any of the above mentioned three processes, he falls down from his position of devotion. So I think very important here. Prabhupada very clearly mentions, if you can, if you must defeat, you must oppose, you must show anger, you must argue and defeat the opposing party. But if you can't, then give up your life. Now, this is very, very severe. However, I think generally it's said that we must do the third bit, which is leave and just go away. Don't be party to it. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat talks about three methods of seeking atonement. First is to genuinely beg forgiveness from the Vaishnava offended. If one offends the Vaishnava, the only way to get free from the offense is to go back to the Vaishnava and beg his forgiveness. That's what we heard already earlier. Just as it takes a thorn to remove a thorn, the offense committed by the mouth against a Vaishnava must be cured by the mouth by begging forgiveness. However, if that does not work, so for example, if you do beg forgiveness and the devotee who's being offended does not forgive, then one cannot do anything about it. But because one have tried, then in that case, just chant the holy name of the Lord Nityananda Prabhu consistently and beg for his mercy. Only by the causeless mercy of the name, form, past of Lord Nityananda, one's offenses against Vaishnava are destroyed, and one attains devotional service to Lord Krishna. This is in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Lila. And also by reading the original verses, the verses of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Khand, chapter 22, daily, wherein it says here that by hearing or reading this narration, one becomes free from the Vaishnava prad committed. So this is about listening carefully to the pastimes of how Sachimata got delivered from her offense against Srila Advaita Acharya. Of course, it doesn't mean that we continue our Vaishnava prad and we go and read the narration of this pastime. So that doesn't mean continue doing. We must become aware, and if we think we've tried everything, then this is last resort, I would say, from what Chaitanya Bhagavat says. So, in summary, we must never offend the Supreme Lord. We must always be respectful. We must be very respectful to the Lord. The Lord is very merciful. The Lord is very loving. Just like, for example, as a father sometimes gets treated differently by that child. Father doesn't get offended. However, it's the duty of the child not to offend the father. So it's the same way that as being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we must never offend him. We must never offend devotees, irrespective of which sampradaya, what is the background one belongs to. Sometimes we think we can only be Vaishnavas means devotees means only those in ISKCON, and those outside of ISKCON we must not respect them. We've seen sometimes where devotees go and get into an argument with Gauriya Vaishnavas or other Vaishnava sampradaya gurus of Vaishnavas. This must stop. This is irrespective. They are Vaishnavas. We must not engage in that activity. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, in his own, through his own example, showed how that we must always beg forgiveness. In his final days, he was begging. All these devotees came to see him for forgiveness. So it's important that we don't take this lightly. We must beg forgiveness. And if you don't, then the result can be very, very bad. Just for example, Mr. Nair offended Srila Prabhupada, and what happened? He created all these problems to the devotees. He got destroyed. Chand Kazi, he offended the devotees. He got the Mridangas destroyed and got the devotees beaten up. The Lord became very angry, and he, along with all the Vaishnavas, went to his house. And how they were destroying everything that he had in his compound, everything, and it's so angry. And Vaishnava Prat actually destroyed Bhaktilata Beach, So we must be very careful when the Bhaktilata is growing. We we can actually destroy it by Vaishnava Prat. So very, very important that we avoid any sort of Vaishnava Prat. And um, in fact, like I said earlier, sometimes we offend Lord Shiva, um, but we don't realize that actually Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is said, Govinda mane na mane Shankar, she karan jai jamkar. It means one who believes in Lord Govinda but does not believe in Lord Shiva goes to the um, planet of Yama, house of Lord Yama. In fact, goes for punishment. So we know that from the scriptures that Lord Shiva is very dear to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. And this we can see when Lord Chaitanya went to Bhuvaneshwar. He went and saw the darshan of Lord Shiva, and he composed a beautiful, nice prayer called Shivastakam, wherein he glorified Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava. Um, and sometimes, like I said, we don't realize, but we actually offend Lord Shiva. In fact, we should not even Lord Shiva, uh, even not Lord Shiva, but Ma Parvati, Durga, Ganesh. These are all devotees of the Lord. We should offer obeisances to them as devotees of the Lord. Of course, the difference is that karmis go to these personalities to beg for material opulence, but as devotees, we must beg them for the mercy so that we can uh, advance in Krishna consciousness, and so that we don't commit any offense, you know. And of course, mentioned earlier, Gaura Prad is very grievous type of Vaishnava Prad. We must guard against this. We sometimes see devotees offend the Guru Maharaj or speak all sorts of ill things about the Guru or any Guru. We should not speak anything inappropriate. We must not engage in such things. Sometimes we see in Facebook so much, you know, negative things have been said about another Vaishnav, but they don't realize that actually we don't realize sometimes that by party to it, actually we are uh, in doing Vaishnava Prana, Guru Prana as well. So we must be very careful. And if we can't, we must just leave immediately. Personally, I would say if we come across where devotees are offending, even in Facebook, block them. We don't want any negative people around us. We must be very careful. If we can't take action, we must leave. And most importantly, if we have offended someone, we must beg them for forgiveness by holding the feet. We must beg them. It's not like we've offended someone and we go and ask beg forgiveness of someone else. You beg, if you've done offense to someone, you beg forgiveness from the person. And devotees are very merciful. Sometimes they will forget. Sometimes they might take time to forget. It will take time for them to forget. The time is the biggest healer. We must do our part. The rest we can do is leave it on Krishna. So I'll end here. Anyone got any comments, any comments or questions they would like to talk about?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Pranam. A beautiful class about it. So important for all of us to understand the impact of Vaishnava Para. You nicely explained this, so many examples, and you talked out in such a good way. It's very, very relevant, very, very useful, And we must always keep in mind, always track ourselves so that we don't deviate from the Vaishnava path and keep ourselves safe from falling down. It's very, very important notes for all of us. Thank you so much. Elaborating this Vaishnava path is so important for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? No comments? No question? Anyone? Hare Krishna. All right, so since no one got any comments, I will now end this here. Thank you very much.
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय
His Grace Hiryanagarbha Prabhu ki jai.
जय
Ki jai. Lord Nande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Jai. Thank you very much for joining, and
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I think I'll end this here now.
Just click my mind. Before we end, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu has gone already.
Mataji, do you know that this first reference is 7, 10 to 7, what was the text? No, number? Do you remember? I just missed it out.
Which one, Prabhu? 7:126.
7:120. Oh, thank you.
26.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.